Hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, I'm audible.
Sir, you need to close one of your ID, or it will just.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
backend is not so good. That's why I logged in from two devices.
Okay, okay, okay. Uh, when you just say me to change slide, I will just change your slide. Okay.
Yeah, that would be great. I hope my voice is clear.
Yes, yes. Could it be little more higher?
Just give me a second. I'll just manage one second.
I can't hear your voice.
Yeah, I think it's audible now.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Okay, let's just start at 2 p.m.
sure, sure. Do let me know.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, hello, good afternoon, everyone. As you all know that we are having a session related to design thinking and product development. So here we have a mentor, Mr. Sagar Guliani, sir, with us today. So I request Sagar, sir, to please take the session forward.
Right. Thank you, Bhavya. Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'll start from my introduction first, and then we'll continue the session. So I'm Sagar Guliani. I have done my software engineering from Global Institute of Technology and Management, Gurgaon. That is not a big name in world of reputed universities, but after I completed my studies, I have explored the UI UX skills of mine in the beginning of my career. Then I founded my startup web services company as I was facing hassles for getting the leads that are required for any web development company. So to resolving this, we founded WebNDs, that was India's first web marketplace. Here we were aggregating the IT firms and providing them the leads of the potential clients. Right. So we have aggregated in the pan India, but that had gone well. So now from the past 3 years, I am collaborating with a couple of startups to gain the industry experience in all the firms and also helping the startups in making them market ready. Right. And in 2019, I got engaged with the political governance network. Here I'm taking care of all the growth and development of the startups, right? And now we are raising a bridge round for them at the Series A at a valuation of more than 50 CR now. Alongside to it, I'm associated with India's most active angel investment network, that is We Found the Circle. Here I am carrying the couple of responsibilities in the investment management, startup curation team, data analysis, and things like that. Right. So with all of my experience of more than 4 and 5 years now that I'm carrying, I am helping the startups in my expertise such as technology, growth, strategy, and also helping them to make the in raising funds. Right. So I would request to please shift the slide to second. Yeah, thank you. So this is the basic topics that we are discussing in the session. Basically, design thinking and the customer-centric approach, adoption of design thinking in our startups, and the product development. Please go to the slide three, please. So, here, so we are always thought in the mind to build a perfect product or design, right? So here is a quote by Anthony. He said that perfection is not finally attained when there is no longer anything to add, but when there is no longer anything to take it away, right? So we are always in a hurry to build a perfect product, right? So we don't have to do that kind of thing. Just build the product, test the market, and adapt it with the time, right? So we will continue the discussion in terms of the same way. I would request to please shift to next slide. Right. So this is the design thinking and the product, right? So we always see when we are ever we develop an MVP, that is the minimum viable product, that it will succeed or not, right? So it is always difficult to predict the success of a new product. Some argue that it is impossible. Even the largest and the best funded mature companies have created products that fail to gain market acceptance and profitability, right? And as we have seen in numerous industries, product success cannot be guaranteed by the financial investments or the product optimization. You must have heard of Google also have launched a couple of products that has not done well in the industry. So financial investment is not a thing that if you have that kind of money or valuation that the product will succeed, right? So with a need to move fast in a given market and an ability to guarantee success through any means, companies continue to seek ways to manage the inherent risk in the product development. Right? Many companies, in turning to the strategy of releasing a minimum viable product that we all need, right? An MVP provides a limited set of core structures to meet the immediate needs of market. So first we do create a MVP or a small product that has the basic and the important features, right? And then we continue to design and create another features and adapt to that. So as you can see in the pictures itself, so the basic need that we are looking for is just two wheels and you can see a board over that, right? This is the basic need for us. After that, we can add to the seats to it, the handle and everything. So this is called the basic of prototype. That is the minimum viable product. So the minimum viable product approach to the product development is a strategy to quickly introduce limited features product to narrowly defined markets, right? So you have to go to a niche market first, then to like over a great geographical area. It is better to manage the risk of creating the things that customer don't want or no longer need, right? So can you please switch to the design slide 5? Yeah, thank you. So design thinking. So design thinking is an iterative process for practical and the creative problem solving. Focuses on the understanding people needs and discovering the best possible solution for meeting those needs. Because design thinking is all about understanding the end user. We are able to observe user behavior in the new light. Right? So design thinking has a lot of process, and it's so there are certain benefits also in design thinking, right? Whether we should apply that or not. What is the use of design thinking in that, right? So we will discuss that in the next slide. Uh, Please, can you switch to that? Yeah. So here are some design benefits that why should we apply? What are the benefits out of this? Right. So design thinking is a solution-based approach first of all. So design thinking approach encourages the UX UI designers to develop different design concepts and test them out early in the design process. Right. So design thinking is like you can say the human centered, not the product centered. You have to go to the end user, right? And relying solely on the quantitative data. So we will gather the quantitative data from the end users based on the prototype that we created or the design we have built in the first round. Right? It considers user behaviors, emotional state, user need, user mindset, and all the things. Right. So third benefit is it like minimizes the uncertainties or the doubts. So design thinking is an iterative process, right? As such, the UI UX designers can reduce the uncertainties in design concepts and prototypes by conducting usability tests early as often. So we will conduct that test according to the surveys or you can say marketing campaigns and all the things. After that, we get a data, right? And upon data, we like try to as it an iterative process. So we will go to the first step and like make changes in the prototype designing itself, right? Right now, so how do we have done that the benefits are there. What is design thinking? So how do we adopt that design thinking in our steps in our startup, right? So next slide, please. Yeah. So adoption of design thinking, there are some phases, right? There is empathize, defining the problem, ideating it, prototype, and testing it finally, right? So first is empathize. Empathize, as the term means, to understand and share the feeling of the others, right? This is the first step of design thinking process, is to empathize with the people you are designing the product for, right? It's the product intended user base. Doing this gives you a better understanding of the problem that you are trying to solve, because in the initial level also, right, you are going to the customers and asking them uh, for conducting surveys, usability tests, or interviews with your target market to develop an understanding of the pain point and the experiences that they are going through. Right. For example, if you like, I want to buy a laptop, right? And how and what should I look for, right? My feeling matrices would be like after looking a variety of laptops, right? I will say, what brand do I like? I want something reliable, right? I am expecting something unique this time. And if earlier I was using Windows, shall I go for Windows only this time, or shall I try something new as the iOS sometimes, right? What I will do is I will check websites, I'll visit showrooms, list some pros and cons of iOS and Windows, right? Ask to my references or the circle, the people who have like expertise in the tech products, right? And how do I feel? I have the excitement, right? Because I'm buying something new. I have a fear of losing the modeling, which is in my mind that it wouldn't go out of stock, right? I need a lot of information regarding this, but I will like feel that if there is an inadequate information among all the websites or the things. So actively working towards gaining like this kind of understanding of the end user. right? And it needs that design thinkers to briefly set aside the assumptions and assess the problem with a different set of mind. Now we have like all the information or the data matrices that we need to like analyze the pain point the customer is having, right, and what he exactly needs, right. So this stage is all about gathering as much as information as possible. You can use it in the next stage to develop a clear and accurate understanding of the end user's needs and pain points, right. So our next phase is defining the problem. So when we have the pain points and the matrices, right, in the so we will compile all the information that we gathered during the empathize last stage and thoroughly analyzing it to define the core problem that we have observed, what the customer exactly needs, right. So we will need to begin the development or the designing process by clearly defining the target customer underlying needs, what he needs actually, what he wants, what his pain points, what he needs as an outcome, right? So this all we will do by developing a deep understanding how a prospective solution improves their condition, right? So this is the key principle of the design thinking. So we have to look for the solutions that the customer needs, right? Since the purpose of minimum viable product, that is MVP development, is to limit the features to those required to deliver a very narrowly defined solution. So initially, as we have to look at the picture also, so initially there are only two tires and a board over there, right? So this is a narrowly defined solution which we need, right? And you want to be like sure you have a good understanding of the solution in the limited functional requirements. The requirements would be as low so that we can use our limited resources over there. We will create a prototype and then we will like test it for the market, right? So during defining the problem stage, design teams, right, should be able to ask the questions that help the group explore various ideas for the possible solutions, right. They have to think outside the box and look at the problems from the different angles, right. Defining the problem statements is also like always there is a human-centered way because you can't think from only one person perspective. You have to ask from a like couple of person, maybe 100 of persons to like ask the pain point. That's only how you will get a lot of data and you will analyze on that, right? After that, when we have like analyzed the pain points and the problem that we are solving, right? We will ideate it to the design, right? How we will. Previous slide is good, right? So in the ideation, we have created and gathered the user pain points and clearly defined the problem that we are trying to solve, right? So the next step is to like call a team meeting and getting with all the pain points that we have generated, the ideas or the solutions that we are like we have the problems and we are identifying it, right? So at in the ideation stage, we need to get more creative and come up with the ideas and design concepts that addresses the user problem, right? So when you're working with a team, it's good. It's a good idea to organize, collaborate, brainstorming sessions, and encourage free thinking. Like you will also consider bringing design developers, stakeholders together during this session, so that the team coordination will be there, and they can build on each other ideas as well, right? So when you will ideate, so your objective is to establish the roles for each team member with everyone understanding how they will support the project and how each individual contributes to the project success, right? So once you have done the ideation, now the phase comes when prototype is there. So you have to build a minimum, you can say a usability product so that you can test out in the market, right? So creating a prototype of the product makes it easy to thoroughly test out the proposed solutions generated in the ideation stage, right? The purpose of this to create a prototype is to bring ideas what you have like thought of in the previous phase in the ideation and select it the best possible solution, right? If you're attempting to solve multiple problems at once and implement all of the chosen solutions in a single prototype, you have to like ensure they work seamlessly together, right? suppose if you want to make a car, then you have four tires and a board over it, and you have to like steering wheel is there, so gates are there, right? So a lot of features are there. So if you want to build that kind of a stuff, and so you have to like ensure they all will like work together and effectively they are working, right? So in the prototype stage, the design team can then explore the solutions implemented in the prototype. Doing so, it will give them a better idea of any limitations that are present in the product with the proposed solutions. Whatever you have created, you will get the knowledge after implementing into the market, right? So at the end of the prototype stage, the design team should have a clear idea of which solutions work, whether they should be accepted or rejected, or they need like few other improvement as well, right? So after the prototype, right? So it's always good, right? So there is a model which we know as a Cano model, right? What is do is it's basic, so it will just gives a basic performance and bar. So the idea is to balance each release with the features from each category, being mindful not to fill a release with features from only one category, right? So this is the outcome of this step is to plan or introduce features to the marketplace through the frequent releases with incremental customer value and another key design thinking principle, right? So this is the prototype stage. So when you have built the prototype, right? So now the time comes when you certainly test the prototype into the market. So how will you test it? So once you have functional prototype, you can test its usability to see if it solves a problem that you have identified in the problem stage. So what customer is having the pain points, you have built a product to it, right? Now you have to check that is it like good a product or it's market ready or how is it good, right? If you are short on time and like initially we are always on a limited budget, so we will consider conducting a gorilla usability test instead of recruiting test participants, right? So what is gorilla usability test? So we generally go in public and ask the persons or the people around there to have 5 or 6 minutes of them to test and survey and give them their feedback from the target users, right? So this is the final stage of the design thinking process. The usability problems identified during the testing or the design phase are often used to redefine the problem and ideate. So whenever the customer like gives you feedback that this shouldn't be here or there, or you need some important features to be collaborated with it, so you will go again to the ideation process and define it, right? If the problem is severe, so you might have to go all the way back to the empathizer stage as well. So if like some customer have told you like again a very strong pain point, then you have to go to the empathize stage, and then you have to complete the cycle again, right? And if it's a minor problem, then you can accurate make it accurate and any of the stage in the design itself, right? So this is the thing. So it's important to remain mindful that the design thinking is an iterative process. You have to require the need of the feedback and the validation along and along. As such, each implementation needs to enlighten, including needs mechanisms and processes that will let you examine the customer experience after each of these. So you have to ask the customer upon every time, right? And you have to apply the web analytics or the specialized tools that will provide extensive commentary to analyze the customer and gather valuable feedback also. So it's not only too important to collect the data, right? But to make it work also, right? It's nothing like a point you have collected and asked the survey from 100 people and you have not gathered the pain points and you're not working on that, right? You have to make sure that the results of any feedback are added to the backlog, right? To constantly improve the product, right? So the process is to review product on the particular release, validate the vision of the product, and begin the process all over again with the first step, that is empathize. This focus is each release to meet the specific needs whichever the customers have told you, right? So creating the you have to create that product development and provides the incremental values and at a low risk, right? So try to be objective. Don't see things in black and white. Restructure your vision to improve the product as per the customer's pain points, right? So to make the things clear, structure the task, like build up a framework, define both focus points and sticking points to research. As I have mentioned earlier, that some of the pain points will be like most important to you, and some of the pain points you can like leave that for now. So you have to structure that and build that framework, right? So one would can appeal to the business, and so yeah, there are two things now. So whatever the two like pain points or the matrices that you will gather from the customers, so they will lie in the two categories. One, so the one would be like appeals to the business, so that will definitely goes with the business model and all the things. So second one is only which speaks to the customer, that how the product feels, how the user experience would be. And second would be the business model. The pricing would not be high, right? It would be available in every geographical location. So this is the thing, right? So now as we are going with the design thinking, so now we have to understand the market also, right? So for the, so if you can shift to the next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So now we have to gather. Once you have a design, like design thinking is there, completed. Now you have to like gather who is going to use your product, right? What are their habits? What are their references? It is very important to understand real user needs and how they are addressed now without your product, right? So what's their current situation, right? Versus how the situation will be when you will give them their product, right? So as I've told you, whereby I give an example that I want to buy a laptop, right? So I will be needing an website, right, that will generally gives the pros and cons of both the iOS and Windows. So that is the user need of mine for right now. So defining the key problems and set your sights on them. What's the context of use? So this is the basic thing. What is their motivation behind, right, using your product? How can you inspire them to make most of it? So what are the things you have to do, and based on that, who is your target market, right? Who are your customers? So that is the basic need you have to identify first, right? So where you will your product will be used, what is the place of your product in the ecosystem? Sometimes it may just be a part of the greater service, right? So if you see that an EV segment, right, electric vehicle segment is very very big right now, right? So there are companies who are running, you can say, electric vehicles, like such as you can say Blue Smart is there, or Uber is coming this there, right? And some of the companies which are operating in the backend as well for like giving them the chargers or the station points. So you have to like have a brief understanding of your product, right? The product that you are developing is whatever the place of the product. So how you will like going into the market as a service or a product, right? So next thing is when. So whether you like it or not, time is vital for your project, right? So if you have customer demand right now, right? So it's there is no need to like deliver the product in the next 6 months, right? That's why it's like happy to be said that done is better than perfect, right? That is why it is important to keep the score of your project in mind, right? To build the product in like certain amount of time. For example, right, textile companies manufacture summer clothes in winters, right? So then that when the summer approaches, the stock is ready. So they know their demand time, right? They have to manufacture the summer clothes in the winter season itself, right? So whenever the summer approaches, the stock is ready and they are able to sell that. So time is very vital for their project. And in the basic, we can say in the house, we can see that if someone is coming from outside in summers and water is not too cold in the fridge, we can offer them the earthen pot water also, right? So done is basically better than perfect in some cases, right? So now the fourth W comes buy. What is the real value of the product for your customer and your business? So you have to identify the price, the model, right? What issues does it address, right? So what are you solving? You have to create that kind of answer, right? Why you have created your product, right? So a company has like multiple products also. So what is the role of this product in the company development sector? For example, what is the role of you can say a Google Chrome browser in the whole alphabet, right? Alphabet, the parent form of the Google, right? So what's the role of that? right? So after analyzing all the W and H, right, we will move out to the conclusions of this. Yeah, please switch to the next slide. So conclusions. Modern product development is moving to a design thinking approach nowadays, right? Gone are the phases where we just ideate and set up on a team on like building the product, right? So why we are doing this? Delivering limited features to target markets to satisfy immediate customer needs. This approach limits the risk of developing a product no one wants, right? So when you have understand the customer pain points, what they need, right? So this is the thing. Whatever the customer needs, you have captured the market initially, right? So that can't be the case that your product will be like goes off the market with zero orders, right? Which is right. So this approach limits the risk of developing a product that no one wants, which may be an unintended consequence of a no longer and more costly development targeted a broader market with extensive features and a great corporate investment also. So frequent releases based on the customer feedback improves the customer satisfaction and provide timely validation in the long-term vision of a product and company, right? So you have to build a prototype first, then with time, whenever your prototype is like selling, and you can like keep adding the releases based on the customer feedback and emphasize with the pain points or the customer like new customer releases. So in the cars also, if you have seen, so earlier in the earlier days, the push windows is not there, right? The steering wheel is not so smooth, right? So they have gathered the customer pain points and realized it, and they have added the features after the like after the prototypes itself. So we can see that. Please switch to the next slide. So, so design is something that you have embedded into a product or a service, right, or an offering that romances the consumer and draws them to the shelf or the product or services, right? It is whatever it is. So how you think about the shape of the product or how it is presented, how it's talked about, not just the color of the package, but everything in terms of the experience that actually draws the customer. So this is the design thinking is all about, right? So now we will talk about. So we have like have an idea till now that what design thinking is and how we have to do that, right? So design thinking, as you are, as I've told you, that it all goes around the customer centric approach itself, right? So design thinking and the product development both uh, have their customer centric approach, right? So we will discuss that in next slide. Please switch to next. Yeah. So this is the customer centric approach to innovation in the product development, right? So customer centricity is so whatever we are developing, whatever we are thinking, we are keeping in our minds about the customers only, right? So customer centricity puts the customer right in middle of our sorry, in middle of the innovation process. So customer gives us the feedback at each of the iteration stage, right? Whatever it would be, either it would be the emphasize, ideation, design, prototype, MVP, test. So whatever the stage would be, the customer is giving us feedback and we are like gathering it and understanding the pain point and we are pivoting back on the feedback, right? Customer centric companies use that customer experience to drive the product development at every stage, right? We have to do that, right? Customer centric strategies drive innovation by allowing true customers leads to lead that way, right? For an example, right, hotel chains used an open innovation lab format, inviting customers to contribute the design and the testing processes for their bedrooms, public spaces, meeting rooms, and even catering concepts. With various opportunities for customer participation, the quick prototyping method gave these hotel chains like instant feedbacks, right? Which was used to implement innovations quickly in its properties like around the world in the hotels, right? And in the second example, you have seen that you have seen in the most companies, they are sponsoring events for free and distributing their products and taking the feedbacks, right? So this is how the companies are building their customer-centric approach, right, around the customer, right? So this is what the benefits and need of it. So how do we build the customer-centric approach? We will discuss in the next slide. Yeah. So there are two phases. Initially, to establish and develop the core of the same, and to extend the capabilities and the segments that we are having. Right. So the first step is to establish and develop the core. The first step is conducting the research and development. Right. Sorry, to identify the core customer segments and develop mutually beneficial value proposition that exceeds the buyer expectation. Right. So whatever we have gathered, we have to develop that and identify the customer segment and go for the prototype thing. So the value proposition represents the customer experience, including the product, services, any interaction with the company. So we have to identify the score and then identify the segments, and we can sharpen the alignment between the customer desire and what the company is offering. So this will lead to the generate additional profits at the same time, right? So company needs to build the capabilities, right, other than what we are having. So some of the capabilities are organizing infrastructure, company customer insight, technology, communication. So these are the things which are not a part of the product, but they will, you can say, uh, generate profits and like reduce increase margin as well, right? So this is the phase one, to establish and develop the core, so that the product would be customer centric. The second would be extended capabilities and extended segments. Right. Extended capabilities here I cover this an example to give a better understanding. Right. Many business travelers not only needed luggage for their tours, but they also carried expensive and easily damaged laptops, computers also. Right. Using this information, the textile brands or the manufacturers, you can say, they have launched a highly successful line of office products, right, including a soft or expendable briefcase and portfolio case, right. So earlier also the handbags or luggage bags are there, but these companies have identified the pain point of these business travelers. So they have built their product, right, keeping in mind to these class of, or these categories of customers, right. So once you have built the product for them, now you will continue in extending it to the other segments as well, right. So here in extended segments, the goal is to understand the difference in the customer needs. So there would be difference in, you can say, the age of the customer, right? So a child cannot bring or carry a large bag, right? You can say the difference is there in the means of gender also, right. So goal is to identify the customer need, modify the value proposition that we are offering to the groups, right, and then tailor the product for them based on the existing capabilities of the firm, right. For an example, there are male travelers also and the female travelers also. For the male traveler, they have like initially, or they have developed for like all the unisex kind of thing, right. And after realizing the pain points of the female traveler, who had different needs for packing clothes, shoes, makeup, accessory, as well as for like carrying briefcases and purses, right? So the companies made the changes by wheeled carry-on bag, right? So they have attached the wheels on that with compartments for shoes, laces, pouches, toiletries, accessories, right? So there was another. They have added one more briefcase that freed up the women hands for allowing them safely carry a laptop or computer, right? So a third product was a hook for handling a briefcase of the field luggage. So these are the additional complementary segments the companies have identified, right, and have added in the existing capabilities that they are carrying or the products they are carrying, right. So that's how we build a customer-centric approach in the product development, right? So we have done all the things, but we have to be defensive in all the phases that we are carrying, right? Companies have to pay a close attention to disrupt threats from the competitors. While we are doing R&D for our products, we have to have a team that do research and development for our competitor also. The customer R&D team aggressively scans the early indications of the customer needs, right, or growing dissatisfaction with the value propositions of the market, especially in the underdeveloped segments. So, for example, if you are building an ice cream bar, right, so you have to look for the customer needs, pain points also, that is like tasting good, having good fragrance also. And apart from that, you have to research and development for the competitors also. That are they? coming with a new brand or some price shift is there. So in the defensive mode, company also scans for shift in technology or the products or the services which the other companies are offering, right? So this is very much risky if we are ignoring the competitors in our field, right? So before the R&D, research and development kind of thing, a true customer-centric innovation includes two additional efforts also in both the frame and go beyond the customer, right? Even before embarking on customer research and development is to measure and manage the customer profitability. So, right, uh, either we should go for this kind of customer research development or not, right? For example, like few companies have tried to discern the customers are profitability, right? Which are not fully allocating all investing capital and expenses to individual customers. Right? For an example, we have seen that a luxury car company don't advertise on TV or radio because they know their customers won't be there. They will be advertising in the newspapers or the magazines, right? So that is the kind of, you can say, early, you can say, beyond the customer research and development, you have to identify where your customer sitting is, right? You have to ask yourself, or you have to understand the pain points of the customers only. Then you have to go for the customer research and development. Right? So when we have done all the things, we have identified the design thinking, we have identified the customer centric approach, right? Now we are like all done with all the design thinking ideation stages. Now the time comes when we are good to go with the product development. Whatever we have like thought or created an MVP, we have to finalize it. Now comes time when we are ready to go with the product development stage. Right. Could you please switch to the next slide? Yeah. So here is the product development, right? So again, you will see like there are some similar phases there, right? Ideation, product definition, prototyping. A lot of things are similar in terms of the design thinking only, right? But there is a difference a bit in these also, right? So product development process describe the 6 steps, right, needed to product form to initial concept to the final market launch, right? This includes market need, researching the competition, ideating a solution, developing a product roadmap, or building the MVP, minimum viable product, that we have discussed with the design thinking also, right? So a major point is it doesn't matter how beautiful you create a product, right? You have to think that a core quality of the service or a product is not good, then it's like good for nothing. For example, you have created a car, right? If like you have designed it from like renowned architect or designed car architect, so but if it is not moving or running, right, there is no point of it. It can be like very very good and attractive. It has so many features, but it is not running on wheels. Then it can't be. It's good for nothing, right? So this is the thing. So you have to build the core quality of the product or service is too good that it has to be like function very well. Then only it can be good in market, right? So after that, we like discuss about the phases of the product development. So first stage is ideation. Please shift to the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So first stage is idea generation, or we can say it an ideation. So initial stage of the product development begins by generating the new product ideas, right? To brainstorm the product company concepts based on the customer needs, pricing, or market research, similar to the design thinking. In the design thinking, we were like having a thought about the customer understanding. So here also, we are ideating that design thinking, right, based upon the pain points that we have discussed in the design thinking process, right? So here we will profile the target market as well. So target market is the consumer profile you are building your product for. This is important for identifying in the beginning in the order to build your product concept around the target market, right? As we have discussed in the uh, just last segment, that if you are making a luxury car, so you have to identify the product market or the targeted marketing you are like having, right? So in the ideation stages, you are like having a thought about the three things only, right? So you are building an extensive product or the similar product you are having, right? If you have are modifying some changes, right, in the existing car or a luggage bag, right? So it's when you have a new product segment, it's good idea to evaluate your existing product portfolio, right? But are there any existing products that solve a similar problem? So you have to identify this also. So if a customer is asking for like in a middle class budget car, so you have to identify that thing also, that they can go for a lower value of car also, right? So you can't offer or like support with these kind of customer offerings that if the demand is not there, so you can't don't have to build a really new product. You have to make some changes in the existing products, and it can be good to go, right? After that, functionality will be there. While you don't need a detailed report of the product functionality yet, you should have a general idea of what functions it will serve, right? In the initial segment, if we are talking about a car, so we will know that, right? We can say that we will add AC into it, we will make it smoother, the mileage would be high. But initially, the core segment is that it should run on wheels, right? If you're not sure about all the functionalities that it has to need, right, just know about the basic things but which it need, right? So in case of car, it has to run on wheels. This is the basic functionality of it, right? In case of a refrigerator, it has to like give coldness, right? So this is the basic functionality. After the functionality, we have to do the SWOT analysis. SWOT is uh, uh, analyzing the product strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats also in the early processes, so that you can help right, you build the best version of your new concepts. This will ensure that your product is different from the competitors and solves a market gap, right? So here you have to analyze in between your team or your company's resources that this is your strength. For example, if your team you are building a website, right? So you are good in a certain technology. For example, you're good in Angular, so you will build the framework in Angular, right? If you are good in relational databases only, so you will build the architecture of the relational database. If you're not good in the frameworks kind of things, right? So you will not go with Magento or WordPress, right? In case of opportunities, if you see a trend in market that now Web3 is using, right? So you can do something kind of a metaverse also, right? So this is the SWOT analysis. You have to identify the strength or the weakness or the opportunities that are coming in the trends or the market. Upon that only you will create the product, right? So we have done with the ideation, right? And now after ideating, you have analyzed all, you have noted down on a paper, right? And now after the ideation, you have to define what you will do or build to a product, right? Yeah. So please shift to the next slide. Yeah. So this is finally the product definition. So how the product will be look like, right? So initially the product development focuses on defining the product strategy, right? So there are also four cases are there, right? Business analysis is there, value proposition is there, success matrices are there, and marketing strategy is there, right? So business analysis consists of mapping out distribution strategies or the e-commerce strategies or more in-depth competitive analysis, right? The purpose of this step is to begin building a clearly defined product roadmap, right? The next is value proposition. So what problem the product is solving, that is the most important thing. Consider it how it differs from the other products in the market, right? This value can be useful for market research and for developing your market strategy. For example, if you're making an ice cream bar, so you are costing it for 10 rupees and the other competitor is costing for 25. So you can like vary your product or value proposition about that. Success matrices is another case. It is essential to clarify the success matrices early so you can evaluate and measure success for once the product is launched, right? So how you will do it, you will identify that the summers are there, so the ice cream bars will be selling, right? So you have identified the success matrices, right? So this is the case. Now you will come to the market strategy. Once you have identified your value proposition, so this is the product will be solving at the selling price of the product, right? Begin the brainstorming a market strategy that will fit your needs. Like consider which channels you will promote to. Either you will go to social media or blockchain or e-commerce platform, right? So while this strategy may need to be like revised depending on the finished product. So initially, if you have thought about you will go, if you are like building a product, you will go with your own website, right? So, but while the time of the launch, at the time of the launch, you will be like having the issues with the servers or certain things. So you are shifting that on the Amazon platform, right? And after gaining the good traction over there, you can build the product to yourself also, right? After this, the third phase is prototyping. When you are done with the product definition, you have got it down on the defining and the functionalities of the product. Now the time comes when you are prototyping the product. That is minimal, you can say, outcome or the basic features the product is needing. That is a prototyping. Now please shift to the next slide. Yeah, yeah, that's it. So in the prototyping, market research is there, development strategy is there, feasibility analysis there, and a minimum viable product. That is the final thing is there, right? So market research is, it is important to analyze any potential risk, right, associated with the production of your product before it is physically created, right? So it's important, very important to research the market, right? This will prevent the product launch from delay later on, right? You have to ask from market that the requirements you are needing or the resources you are needing, right, will be provided the time that we are thinking, right? It will also ensure that you communicate risk to the team, right? If for example one of your team member is asking for a holiday trip, right, so you will have to discuss with all the team members that can we like pile up the work or we can share the work, right? So this is the thing you have to done the market research as well, right? Next is the development strategies. You can begin working through your development plan, right? In other words, understand how you will assigning tasks and the timelines of this task, right? If you have to plan the task and you have given like timelines or estimated timelines in a week or a month basis, you have to ask from the team members to like deliver their plans according to timeline only. After that, feasibility test, right, is to evaluate your product strategy based on the feasibility. Determine if the workload or the estimated timeline what you have given to the team members, right? Will they be like efficient enough to like go and like complete their task, whatever you have given them, uh, according to the dates or the timelines, right? Finally, the MVP is there. MVP is the minimum viable product. The final outcome of the prototyping stage is a minimum viable product, right? Think of your MVP as a product that has the feature necessary to go to the launch, right? Just not a full-fledged car, but only four tires and a board over it. So that is the MVP, right? For example, an MVP bike would include a frame, wheels, and a seat, but wouldn't contain a basket or a bell, right? So this is the thing, MVP bike. So we can add the basket or bell, or you can say the other things, right? But we can add that later, right? So this is the thing. So after design, having clarity over the MVP, we will create the finalized design that we have discussed in the design phases, right? Please switch to the next slide. Yeah. So as we have discussed in the design thinking, right, there are emphasize, define, ideate, and prototype and test. So we can go back to the design thinking and we will create all the designs, right? Please switch to the next slide. So when we have created the design, we have to validate it and test it, right? So there are three phases now: concept development and testing, right? Front end testing and test marketing. So you may have to successfully design your product, but you will still need to work through any issues that arise while developing the concept, right? Once you have successfully developed the prototype, right, for designing, right? So you have to work. Is my car is running smoothly, right? Either of the, you can say, the wheel is not working. So these are be the certain cases that would be there, right? This would involve the software development or the physical production or the initial prototype. Either when you are building a website, so after the server launch, if the browser is like adapting, or is my website is like familiar to the browser framework, right? So these kind of things will arise after the prototyping, right? So text functionality by enlisting the help of the team members and beta testers to quality assure the development of the product. Right. After the concept development, now comes the front end testing. During this stage, right, so test the front end functionality for risk with development code or the consumer facing errors. This includes like checking the e-commerce functionality and ensuring that it is stable for launch. Right, you have to go to the e-commerce website or the functionality. You have to select that item into the cart, and you have to go to the order button. You have to buy the product, go to the payment gateway, done the payment, and successfully place the product. Right. So this is the function front end testing that we are talking about. After that, test marketing is there. So before you begin producing your final product, test your marketing plan also for functionalities and bad errors. Like have a look at the sorry, have a look at the item offering. So what's the price you are offering, right? This is also a time to ensure that all the campaigns that you have set up are correct and ready to launch. Right. When we have done with the validation and testing, then we are good to go with the commercialization process. That is, you can say, commercialization is basically the final product development of all the phases. Right. Let's switch to the next slide. Right. So this is the commercialization. In commercialization, two phases are there or stages you can say. One is the product development and second is the e-commerce implementation. Right. Product development is the physical creation of your product. Right. That will be released to the customer after the prototyping. This may require production or additional development for the software concepts. Right. Give your team the final prototype and MVP iteration to produce the product to the correct specifications. Right. E-commerce implementation is once the product has been developed, right? You are ready to launch. Your development team will transition your e-commerce material to live state, right? This may require additional testing to ensure your live product is functioning as it was intended during the previous front end testing phase, you can say. So when you are ready to launch, right, you have to go to the market and test that is your product is selling, whatever strategies you have made, right? Is the product is selling as the same matrices, right? So this is the e-commerce implementation. Now, so whenever we are like developing the product now, so we will be thinking that the product development will be including only a group of developers and the designers. But there are many stakeholders and various teams that assist with the product development processes, right? The it can be the case that main leader is the product manager who oversees all the product tasks related to the design, right? There are various design product tasks, right, related to the ideation, research development, product launch, right? So there would be a different members also apart from designers and developers. They are researchers, thinkers, managers, data analysts, database designers, architects, operations managers, right? So there are multiple people. So don't be thinking that only developers and designers are needed to develop the product, right? So last thing from my side is it's just a thought from my end. That never develop a short side product, right? From the start itself, try to create the product which is highly scalable and flexible enough to make the changes in the future or to add modules, right? So initially, if you are making, you can say, e-commerce website, right? So you are building a WordPress for first of them, right? Then after you can like building on the Node.js or AngularJS as well, right? So initially you have to come up with a solution that will grow endlessly with the product or the future enrichments, right? So go with that kind of thing. Have the core functionality of the product good to be go in every stages, right? And start from itself to try to create the product that is highly scalable and flexible enough to make the changes in the future to add the modules. Yeah. So I think we are good to go with the next slide. Yeah. So this is from my side. If you have certain questions, you can answer. Hi. Hello. Bhavya, any good questions?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hello.
if
Am I
yeah,
audible?
yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. Anyone is having any questions or queries, they can ask. Okay, sir. Let's end the
I think
session.
we are good to go. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, sir.
yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining and giving knowledge about design thinking and product development. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.